Welcome to Gamers Station. Today we're looking at a pretty good game. It's Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor. Now, I wasn't expecting too much out of this because movie games tend to not be that great. They have this reputation for just sort of falling through and not living up to expectations. But the nice thing about Shadow of Mordor is that it's not based directly on The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings. It's actually set between the two, after The Hobbit and before Lord of the Rings. And you play this guy who basically, in the most dramatic opening sequence ever, dies. Basically, his entire family is killed in a ritual sacrifice, including yourself. But for some reason, you're sort of brought back to life as this kind of wraith spirit thing. And you are basically stuck in Mordor. Now, this is before Mordor was just a fiery, barren wasteland. There's actually some greenery and living things there, but it's still filled with a lot of orcs. So basically, you want to take revenge on what happened to your family, and also you have the big Sauron figure to fight. But mainly it's the orcs, really, and the gameplay itself is really, really nice, and we're gonna get right into that. So let's talk gameplay. Now, I wasn't expecting too much because it looked kind of like a hack and slash at first glance, but then the combat system is actually a lot like the Batman Arkham games. Now, the Batman Arkham games are famed for their combat, if nothing else. They've got really, really responsive combat, the counters are really on point, and you really feel like you are fighting. But the game also feels very Assassin's Creed-y. So for example, instead of eagle vision, we've got wraith vision, and you have the whole jumping from the top of towers and landing safely, which is completely unrealistic but still very fun. But considering it's sort of a mix between Assassin's Creed and Batman Arkham set in the Lord of the Rings universe, that actually sounds like a fantastic combination. And actually the game it's not too similar to those other games, and it does feel like its own game. And the big selling point, the real innovation of Shadow of Mordor is they have this Nemesis system. Now the Nemesis system is where you are playing this main character, but behind the scenes you have this sort of orc society living in Mordor, and they have ranks and ratings, like there's a lieutenant, a general, and so on. So you sort of get early on introduced to this really interesting character called Ratbag, and he's probably one of the most interesting characters you're going to meet in the game. And he aspires to be one of the war chiefs of Sauron's army. So he makes a deal. And basically you sort of have to play a political game where you are sort of pitting orcs against each other, so they kill each other. You manually go out and kill orcs yourself. And also you sort of try and promote Ratbag because his goal is to kill the war chief so he can become the war chief. So your goal is to kill the war chief. So you have a sort of alliance. And what's really cool is later on in the game is that you get to mind control certain orcs. So you can mind control a low-ranking orc, kill the higher-ranking ones, so you promote the orc that you have mind controlled. So there's this sort of hidden behind-the-scenes strategy of the whole game. And here's the real kicker. When you die, if one of the low-ranking orcs kills you, it still feels rewarding. It doesn't just restart you. That orc that killed you gets promoted. So if you keep getting yourself killed, then you're promoting the enemy, which is a really weird system, but it actually feels rewarding. It feels meaningful, even when you lose and die. And a bit of a note on the combat. This sort of combat system, like I mentioned in Assassin's Creed, can sometimes make you feel very overpowered, but in this game, it's definitely not the case. If you get yourself stuck in a corner and there's a bunch of orcs around you, it's actually very, very difficult to get out of the situation, and it's very likely that you will die, especially if you're hoarded by orcs and also some war chiefs. That's going to be really, really tough. But overall, the game feels very, very nice, very, very fantastic, very clean and tight. The only weak point, I would say, is the plot. It sort of starts out with this really, really compelling, heartbreaking sort of ritual sacrifice scene at the beginning, but then it doesn't really carry through to the rest of the game. The other characters, besides Ratbag, the other characters feel kind of samey, the orcs kind of feel samey, and there's not really a lot of characters to get attached to. But I do have to mention that the voice acting is phenomenal. It's some of the best voice acting I've heard in a video game, and that alone can keep you going. So, will you like Shadow of Mordor? Well, it depends. If you like action games, this is probably one of the best action games I've played in recent times. If you like any of the Batman Arkham games or Assassin's Creed, you'll probably like this. And if you're into the Lord of the Rings universe, but not necessarily The Hobbit or the Lord of the Rings, then you're gonna like this as well. And it gives you a sort of nice insight into Mordor before everything went down. So the gameplay itself is gonna last you at least 15 hours for the main quest, and it can go up to around 30 hours if you're more of a completionist. So that's quite a hefty amount of content, but it's not an insane amount. So whether you deem it worthy or not, that's really up to you. But overall, Shadow of Mordor, really, really nice. Definitely recommend it.
I do not trust him.
We're lucky to have you.
Don't be blinded by your emotions. I'll have your guts. Where are the servants of the Dark Lord? Kill him!
We are at the end of another episode of Gadget Nation, but don't worry because we'll be back same time, same place next week with more great stuff to show you. I simply cannot wait. Meantime, Facebook, Twitter, etc. do find us. We would absolutely love to hear from you. Once again, many thanks to our location today, Cat in the Box and Empire Damansara for hosting us. Until next time, my name's Adam Carruthers.